Sometimes when we're looking at a motorcycle, we might not see the bigger picture because we'll go, well, you know, we're restricted on budget. So this is the kind of bike I'm looking at. And what we might find is you might find a bike of a higher spec, lower mileage, better condition for, let's just say, maybe £1,000 or 500 euros more. In this video, I'm going to discuss why the F800GS Adventure was not my first motorcycle I was looking at, and that obviously ultimately ended up going for it. So I hope you get the most out of this video. For those that might be looking at to comparing these two bikes, you might think, okay, this might be a good video, and hopefully you'll return me with a good like and of course a comment. And of course, if you're here for the first time, I have a pretty much consistent video content of F800GS Adventure videos, so consider checking them out. So without further ado, let's get started, and I'll tell you why I ended up buying this motorcycle. Before I started looking at a replacement motorcycle, I had an F700GS that I bought brand new in 2016. I then kept it for a couple of years, didn't get much use out of it because the weather in Ireland was very atrocious for those periods of times, and it was more a pain really to get the thing out to keep the battery charged up. So in 2018 I decided, you know what, I think it's time to move on. Got rid of the bike, didn't ride any bikes for a couple of years, and then I was back in the market again. I was like, right, now it's time to possibly look at a new bike. First things you're obviously going to take into consideration is how much money you have. I decided I was not going to finance a bike this time because I'd financed the F700GS and I thought it was a complete waste of money, because literally I had the bike sitting in the alleyway most of the months that I was paying this bike off. So I wanted to try and buy a bike cash. So obviously I had to start looking around. Being a BMW fan, I was like, right, let's look at an F800GS and see what the options are. Right, the F800GS, I remember seeing one for the first time in 2012 when my instructor, when I was doing my motorcycle license, had one. And I just loved that color, the scheme, the blend, the plastic with the yellow color. I was like, just wow, you know. I had a G650GS back then, and for me that was my joy. It was great, single cylinder, go anywhere, do anything. Had limited off-road capability because I had alloys, but I was like, one day I'm going to get myself one of them. So I reminisced and I was like, you know, maybe it's time to get the F800GS. I've got my, you know, I've been a fan of BMW for a very long time, but let's just go with another BMW. Obviously you've got limited options and you've got to think about the price budget. I'm sure you'd agree. And I wanted to not finance a bike. For me it was very important. I didn't want to do that because I financed the F700GS and it just spent the majority of its time just sitting in the alleyway next to the house. And I was just paying monthly all the time, so I was like, no, I don't want that. Just in case the weather's bad, the bike can sit here, and you know, I don't have to fuss over it. So okay, £5,000. Let's have a look at some options. So a lovely yellow one, but then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking my old F700GS, and I'm like, you know, that had the electronics package, the stability control, traction control, it had all those nice bits, and I just knew I wasn't going to get it on that. The electronic packages on the old F800GS were pretty limited. You basically had ABS, which was switchable, and even on some of those bikes people deactivated. They didn't want the ABS, but I wanted the electronics. So for me that was a big plus point. So I was undecided. I was like, I wanted that to try and see if I could get that full package, but then I'm going to have to move up a few years, because in 2013 they introduced the updated GS lineup for the F series, and then they introduced all those electronics. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I spoke to a couple of people, and this is what I came up with. I spoke to a good friend of mine, and he was like, why don't you get an F800GS Adventure? And I was like, you know, it's going to cost a lot more than what my budget allows. And he says, well, what about this one here? It was up for £7,000, I believe, and I was like, £2,000. £2,000's going to be a bit of a stretch. And then when I had a closer look at the spec, I was like, oh, hang on a sec, this is a full spec bike here. This has got the stability control, it's got the traction control, the ESA, electronic suspension adjustment. It had everything. It had the larger fuel tank. I was just like, because I've always had this dream of riding a bike all the way down to Morocco, and I was like, this can make it happen, you know, because it's got the capability, 24-litre fuel tank, it's got the carrying capacity, the comfort level, and the distance to do it. So I was like, where am I going to find this? And he said, well, look, leave it with me. he'll have a chat to the guy and see if we can bring the price down to a suitable level. You know, so I said okay, so I left it with him. And while I left my buddy to see if he could have a chat to the guy, I decided to just have a look at the comparisons and the technical details between the two. Surprisingly, there wasn't much different. The major thing really was because of it being a later model, it came with a lot more electronics. The wider fairings here to compensate for the size of the fuel tank at the back. I like that look. It's a much wider stance. It's like a crossover between an F800GS and an R1200GS. Not as big, but still looks good. But it's not overly big. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say is it's got the right kind of size for me. The engine was the same. The handlebar layout was the same as the F800GS, likewise with the dash. Pretty much the bike, look, I mean, obviously it had some modern touches. You've got LED indicators, that sort of stuff came down the line. But, you know, the most important thing that I was definitely considering was the electronics and the 24-litre fuel tank. Yeah, so eventually we go and have a look at the bike, and I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. You know, I'd never owned a piece of kit like this out of my own money, I mean, not financed, because my G650 was financed, my F700GS was financed, and now I had the opportunity to actually buy a bike cash. And I was just like, man, this is going to be mine. But, you know, I saw it, I never rode it. I don't know if that's a thing, if people let you ride their bikes, or whether you've been to someone's house and, you know, you ride it, and then, because I think some people think you're not going to come back. But I didn't ride it, and I thought I'd wait until I paid him, and then, you know, the bike was mine, which I did a couple of weeks later. But since riding it, there's a couple of drawbacks which I'm going to go into. A couple of drawbacks I noticed after I bought it, and it's the weight of the bike. 229 kilos, quite a hell of a lot more heavier, and it's heavier than my F700GS, and enormously heavier than the G650GS I had. And then of course the seat height is 890 millimeters, so you've got a raised seat height. So again, I found that quite difficult depending on the surface where I could put my feet down. You know, you'd end up slipping your foot, and then of course the bike would lean, and then you couldn't hold the angle, and you'd have to put the bike down. It's happened a couple of times. One particular section was a bit of a decline as well, which is rather unfortunate because I couldn't get the bike up. I had to flag someone down to actually help me to lift the bike up. It was quite, I wouldn't say I was embarrassed, but it was just, unfortunately, when I parked the bike, I'd forgotten that it was on a slope. So when I got on the bike, you do that to shift the bike to the right to put the kickstand out, and then of course it was too far over, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I scratched the logo here, and that's where these marks are here. And then when you're trying to get it up, you just make more damage. So yeah, I ended up flagging someone down. The guy helped me lift the bike up within a minute. Well, not even a minute, like 10 seconds. But yeah, so those are the issues. But again, you weigh up the pros and cons. This is the pros are up here, the cons are down here. It's still, you know, it's still worth it. To me anyway. And obviously I bought the bike at that stage, so I had to put up with it. And then I thought, well, you know, maybe I'd get bigger boots or something like that. Maybe that might help. I know you can get lowered seats for these, but I didn't want to change. I like the comfort seat. So those were a few of the issues that I came up with. I hope that might help you. Yeah, so probably one of the major reasons that got me to go for the F800GS Adventure over the regular F800 was, first of all, just value for money. Sure, there was a gap that needed to be financed, or I needed to find the money for it, but in the end I did. And it's funny how we think, because initially we go, no, I'm only going to spend $5,000, and then we don't sort of step back and go, well, actually, if I spend an extra $1,500, I go up 5 years, I get this, this, and this, and then you go, well, actually, that's actually quite good value. And then secondly, the longer you keep the bike for, sure, that's €1,500. You divide it by 4 years, and then it's, you know, it's even easily more justifiable, the reason why you ended up with something like this. So it's certainly up to date. 4 years later, I'm definitely not disappointed in my purchase. I would have had just as much fun with the F800GS, but now I've got, you know, within the years, I've got a newer bike with all the new tech in it. And I had done previous videos when I've compared this with the F850GS, and I'll leave a link in the top right there. Definitely a video worth checking out, or it might be up here. Again, it just shows you how close this bike is to the newer bikes. When you look at the old F800GS, the 0809s, and you compare it then with an F850GS, there's quite a lot different. But because BMW introduced a lot of the new technologies in 2013, it's easily comparable with the F850GS. And I'm probably going to make an F900GS adventure video as well at some point. So if you're here for the first time, definitely consider subscribing. But that's all I have for you for today. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've got some value out of this video. Give me a thumbs up, comment down below. And one of the biggest things you can take away from this video, guys, is that sometimes it's worth spending a little bit more for something that you really want versus something that you've seen and you like. So I'll leave it up to you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.